And then what's that Warhammer one tomorrow?
You need to stop what you're doing right now. I see what you're doing. I saw what you said. You should not. Stop celebrating the success of these 30-person studios that are doing more with 30 people than most video game studios can do with 600. No, instead, you need to panic. We all need to panic because the deprofessionalization of the games industry is on the horizon. At least that's what they're calling it. And that means...
That was a big yawn. I didn't yawn, chat. Shut up. By the way, the subathon is on right now. From what? Or I'll find you. Anyways.
Is that there are fewer roles in marketing. Cultural consulting.
Cultural consulting.
Brace yourselves for this one. Less roles in middle management. Oh, God, the horror!
Oh, the horror! The horror!
So today we're going to be talking...
For those who are unaware of sarcasm, that's a sarcasm.
Talking about how apparently it's a bad thing that more people are making games on their own because that means less opportunities for the...
And I've noticed that a lot of these big game companies have started doing the thing that a lot of them said they wouldn't. And a lot of them know is bad. Which is copyright protecting mechanics. So that they can stomp out indies.
The real professionals. Oh yeah, this is going to be good. Once success starts happening outside of the system, all of a sudden it's not about whether or not these games are good. No, it's about who's not getting paid to make them. Accountability is a rare thing in the games industry. I've noticed that more times than not. And so many people want to shift the blame onto somebody else. They want to create an enemy out of thin air, or they want to appeal to empathy for job security. And now we need to be careful with how much we enjoy these indie games because it could hurt AAA. You need to put down that Expedition 33. You might poke somebody's eye out with that thing. But before that, a word from today's sponsor. If game publishers are willing to charge $80 for digital games that you don't actually own, track your behavior, and lock content behind online-only DRM, what do you think they are doing with your data? Yeah, that's why I use NordVPN. And
that's what I'm saying, like... Hello? That's literally what they're doing. Like, what? Are y'all even letting them get away with it?
You probably should too.
But no, they promise they won't use it badly. Or sell our data. They write that promise down? Where?
NordVPN encrypts your internet traffic, blocks trackers and malicious websites with its Threat Protection Pro, and it helps you stay private no matter where you are or what you're doing online. It's fast, reliable, and it doesn't log any of your activity, which is more than I can say for a lot of other companies on the internet these days. It also lets you access region-locked content from anywhere in the world, whether that's a documentary that's only available overseas, a site that's...
I started using DuckDuckGo because one, cute duck, and two, it doesn't track my, like, where I'm going, even when I tell it not to. It doesn't do it, period. Which, by the way, yes, Google tracks your everything you do, even when you tell it not to.
Blocked on your network, or you're just trying to avoid price discrimination. NordVPN gives you the freedom to browse without borders or restrictions. Whether you're...
I mean, if they want my data, I can only hope it get used as a tool to promote Digimon Story of Seasons Reflection. No, silly. They're gonna sell it to, like, the credit unions and stuff so they can call you about their new deal.
If you're sick of targeted ads, censorship, or you just want to take back control of your digital life, NordVPN gives you the tools to do it. Go to nordvpn.com/LDrops or click the link in the description or pinned comment below to get a major discount on a 2-year plan.
Yeah, the ones you already don't buy. That they think if they can harass you enough on your phone, that eventually you'll cave.
Plus 4 extra months for free.
That's those game companies calling you weak-willed, by the way.
And if you find out that it's not for you, well, there is a 30-day money-back guarantee. Thank you to NordVPN for sponsoring today's video.
The hell is this? Why does this have 4 million views? Why does it say Skibbity Toilet 46? Alright.
Indie games
Humanity
haven't
was a
just found
mistake.
success in recent years. They have
I'm gonna burn down a
dominated,
few
not just
villages.
as underdogs, but as some of the most beloved and talked about titles in the industry. And indie has become a bit of a spectrum. On one end, you have studios like Larian with Baldur's Gate 3 or Sandfall Interactive with Expedition 33, well-funded, still operating outside of the grip of traditional publishers. And on the other end, you have solo developers like Tyler with Schedule 1 or Local Thunk, the creator of Balatro. Completely different scales, but the same result. Self-run, self-funded, and most importantly, unrestricted by AAA. As tools become more accessible and these games keep hitting both critically and commercially, more creators are jumping in. Some are seasoned veterans that are finally breaking free to go make something they actually want to. Others are just complete newcomers. But the point is, they're doing it, and they're doing it on their own, and that's where the friction starts. Because every new success story from the indie world exposes just how bloated and inefficient the traditional studio system has become. And for some people, that's a threat, especially if your whole job exists within a 500-person pipeline. These all-purpose developers are doing to AAA what YouTubers did to network television, what streamers did to cable news. They are proving that you don't need 10 departments and 1,000 employees to make something that people actually care about. And just like how content creators are often branded as unprofessional by legacy media,
Did anyone else see that news? I only saw it because I think someone was complaining about it. I don't remember. It was late at night. They called Hassan a gamer. No, you don't get to shove him in that hole to make us look bad. No,
indie developers are now getting the same treatment from the AAA establishment. In an article written by Bryant Francis of Game Development,
you're just mad that most gamers are really good people. That's the funny thing. It wasn't even that. It's on the public news, on a news channel. That's the sad part.
Developer.com titled "The Deprofessional."
Because apparently, man has been so vocal recently, he got onto the freaking news.
Personalization of video games was on full display at PAX East. PAX East felt like a warning. Explosively successful games by solo devs and small teams are great, but it could lead to the death of vital.
Deprofessionalization. How are they not professional? I want an explanation for this. How are you calling these solo devs unprofessional or small teams unprofessional? I don't hear them getting into controversies about harassment. Kind of feels like they're more professional, if you ask me.
Specialists. He writes, at DICE and GDC this year, I heard talk of a trend in game development that sent a chill down my spine. Deprofessionalization, as A16Z marketing partner Ryan K. Rigney defines it, deprofessionalization is a phenomenon driven by the overperformance of older titles, particularly free-to-play live service games, large studios struggling to drive sales, and the outsized success of some solo developers and small teams. These three forces, he argues, will combine to...
You know what's hilarious? While all these big companies are copyright protecting mechanics and stuff, which I hope dies. I seriously hope Nintendo loses. They think we're gonna start buying their games then. A lot of us still have a lot of your old games, buddy. And a lot of your old games, a lot of the old games and indie games that are out now would last me for years. Years.
drive career professionals from the traditional professionalized side of the games industry.
So, I'm not even slightly interested in what you got coming at this point.
Some of these people will decide to go indie, he continues. Others will leave gaming altogether. And in between, there is a vast spectrum of irregular working arrangements available. Yeah, I'm going to have to stop you right there. The idea that indie success is driving career professionals out of the industry is such a warped take that it's almost impressive.
It is. How do you think it's... I feel like it's driving more of them to be professional. The ones that are actually worth anything are going, oh, I guess I don't need this company anymore. I'll just go make it myself. I feel like that's a good thing.
5 years of layoffs, project cancellations, and ruthless studio consolidation, and instead blame the one guy who made a viral hit in his bedroom. That's the villain now? Major studios were pushing these people out long before indie would even...
Meet the Boka. She is the modern Stone Age gremlin from the town of Twitch. Stream share as a page right out of history. Let's ride with the Boka D.
Down the vtuber hole through the courtesy of Boka Fat Feet. Hello? When you're with the Boka, have a yabba dabba doo time. A Boka doo time. We'll have a gay old time. Shut up, Alan! What the hell?
Specialized talent wasn't being nurtured, it was being discarded. Projects were getting rebooted mid-development. QA is being outsourced, and artists are being chewed up and spat out like they were nothing more than replaceable assets. Indie success didn't create this brain drain. It gave people a reason to leave willingly or a place to go if they didn't. So if those same professionals now look at indie devs and think, yeah, I'd rather take the risk and make something real,
fine.
That's not deprofessionalization. That is
maybe
liberation.
10 seconds.
And honestly, that's a good thing. And this
I don't
industry
know.
needs more of it. Because the reality is the parts of this industry that this article feels are being threatened, the corporate monoliths like Activision, EA, Ubisoft, Epic, are the same companies that are responsible for most of what's broken right now. Bloated budgets, monetization first design, copycat games that are designed to mimic Fortnite or Call of Duty. If those studios are shedding talent, maybe that's because they've become the worst place to put it. And if those same professionals that are being kicked out of the industry go on to build the next Larian, the next Supergiant, or the next Sandfall Entertainment, that's not a loss. That's the start of something better. The writer goes on to say, wandering through these booths, I found a mix of truly excellent and inspiring games, but also found myself bubbling with frustration. Few developers on display were working with teams larger than 3 people. They talked about publishers wanting ever more expensive offerings as a part of their pitch deck. Short-term contractors seemed to be the best way to plug gaps. Why did it feel like so few proper businesses were fighting to get their games in front of players at PAX? Speaking with Rigney and other developers...
What do you mean proper businesses? You mean ones beholden to shareholders? Is that what you're trying to say? It kind of sounds like that's what you're trying to say.
I sense that deprofessionalization isn't just a catchy phrase to describe the demand side of economics in game industry hiring. It's a frustrating reality that may undervalue games from big and small teams alike. Rigney offered some extra nuance on his deprofessionalization theory in an email exchange we had before PAX. He predicted that marketing roles at studios would be the first on the chopping block, followed by...
Need to be. That's what I'm saying. Marketing roles should have been the first on the chopping block long ago. Devs are way more important than your marketing. Because first and foremost, people care about good games. I think most people can agree that I'd rather have more devs in the studio than see one more marketer that's whole goal is to make their game sound better than it is. And to basically soft, what's the word? Lie about, like, the mechanics and stuff. So that, like, you buy it, find out it's not that, can't sue about, false advertising because of the way they worded it. Or they put little letters way at the bottom of the screen of not representational of actual content.
By roles that seem to be replaceable to management, even if they're not. I genuinely cannot believe that this article exists. The writer walks through PAX, sees a wave of exciting and inspiring indie games made by teams of 3 or fewer, and comes away frustrated. Why?
What's sad is their marketing teams, I could do better than all of them combined. Easily. And I wouldn't mandate stuff on the devs. I could easily see what the developers are working with, see what we got so far, and I could easily come up with like 3, 4, probably even 5 different scenarios for a marketing pitch. But you're telling me you need an entire team to give out the slop we get in terms of marketing. Huh? I took like a semester of a marketing class. I only went to it a few times and realized I knew better than the freaking teacher. Like, he had some smart ideas, but like half the time, like, I was like, huh?
because there weren't enough proper businesses represented? What does that even mean? You just admitted that these indie teams are doing great work, but then you're upset because they're not expensive enough because the teams are so small?
They're not expensive enough? I'm trying to, like, process that.
And then you go on to quote developers saying that publishers are demanding bigger budgets to take their pitches seriously. And somehow...
trust me, I'll be surprised if Borderlands 4 even makes $1 million. Notice that multiple CEOs have basically said, you're too poor. Recently. They're not gamers. Gaming was, is, and always will be a pastime extra hobby kind of thing. You can't demand people pay $80 per game. You can't demand people pay for something and not own it. Gaming has always been a ownership kind of thing. They did an ad for a new PC power supply, and well, when they powered it on, they thought it would be cool to have smoke pour out of it to indicate airflow. I'm telling you, I don't know. I almost, like, it's stories like this that make me not want to go back to college. If this is who the people that are passing it, supposedly.
That isn't the problem. You don't see the connection. The developers at PAX didn't create the system, the publishers did. This entire bloated mess is a natural result of an industry obsessed with scale, overspending, and risk aversion. These indie devs are simply surviving despite it. But of course, now we arrive at the heart of the article, that scary word, deprofessionalization, and suddenly the tone shifts. The accomplishments of these studios gets brushed aside. Their success becomes a problem, not a triumph. Because, oh no, they shipped a game that people actually liked without a marketing team, or a Ludo narrative.
How dare they?
Synergy specialist, or a lead experiential curator.
No.
Oh, no. I could do their job as well, easily. I know all the ins and outs of it, and I know the most important parts. And I could do a better job while not being a butthole.
No. Wait.
Guys, I've said this before, and I'm going to keep saying it. One of the biggest issues in AAA development is bloated teams, bloated budgets, bloated management structures where nobody...
The biggest blow is in the marketing, HR departments, and, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure there are AI departments now. Those don't even need to exist. I'm sorry. But also middle management and upper management. There needs to be one person. A CEO, right? There needs to be maybe a max. Like, I could get some kind of argument for 2, like, mid-tier, like, right below the CEO managers. And then, like, 3, like, station managers. 3 of them being, like, for each, like, group of work. Like, a manager per, like, department. And then right below that is an assistant manager. 1. You don't need 2. You need 1. You want a secretary? Get a secretary. But 1 manager. And then, like, below them is the workers.
Nobody knows what
In
the
5
person
years,
next
there'll
to them
just be AI
actually...
department, and then those companies will die. Because when people have said video game is art, they mean it. And you can't... One of the things you can't take out of art is heart.
Even does. You end up with departments that are built to manage other departments, pipelines that are so tangled that you can't even see the final product, and a burn rate that is so high, it is a miracle that anything gets shipped at all. And then they warn us, brace yourselves, marketing might be the first roll on the chopping block. Good. Most marketing departments in this industry are completely useless. It has never been easier to get your game in front of players if your game is actually good. You can't fake that kind of traction anymore. You can spend millions of
Then half of them don't seem to do their job because, like, when is the last time you've seen a good marketing, like, announcement for a game? In terms of, like, it's constantly put it in front of you and stuff.
dollars plastering Avowed on trains and buses, put an ad in Times Square, but it won't matter if the game doesn't deliver. Meanwhile, Expedition 33 has people screaming about the soundtrack, the story, the characters, the combat, because the game itself is worth talking about.
It does look so good. I can't wait to play
You need
it.
a 30-person marketing team if your game hits. You need a game that deserves to. That shift is happening right now. That's what's going on, and it's not deprofessionalization.
I think a law needs to be made yesterday to take AI out of art. Completely. Not allowed. Can't fake it. Because I don't think it's going to help the industry at all. I think it's going to burn it down. We'll be lucky to have new games in the next 5 years. I think in the next 5 years, if AI is not taken out of art, you will see less games made. Well, less games that are actually purchased.
It's rebalancing. This industry has been top heavy for too long, and that weight is finally starting to shift towards the people who actually build the damn thing. The article then pivots to acknowledge a different kind of success story, the creative renegades, the ones that are making weird, original, impossible to greenlight games that traditional publishers would have laughed out of the room. Rigney praises them, calling them out as this is the only creative industry on the planet where one person can make $100 million making something by themselves, which, yes, true, but the tone here still drips with discomfort, like it's a cool fluke and not something to build around. Now, to the author's credit, they go on to clarify that small teams aren't obligated to hire anyone. They are doing what they can with what they have, and better tools have made that possible. But here's where the framing starts to slide sideways. They say what feels wrong is that so few people benefit from this new status quo. Not that small teams are succeeding.
What do you mean so few people benefit? Every single customer that bought a game from them benefits. So apparently a lot of people benefited.
But that too many people aren't a part of it. They then go back to Rigney and bring up a new example. Aaron Rutledge, former lead designer of League of Legends, Black Ops 4, and Apex Legends, now running a consultant firm called Area Denial, basically a hired gun. The writer admits that his career sounds romantic, but then calls this model a structure that celebrates the few over the many, one that elevates roles like design and programming while leaving out non-essential positions.
What do you mean? You just answered your own question. They're non-essential for a reason.
What is this? How do you go from saying that this is the only creative industry on the planet where one person can make $100 million by themselves to immediately following that with what feels wrong about this is how so few people seem to benefit from this status quo? Do you hear yourself? This is the benefit. That is the shift. We are no longer living in an era where you need to get a green light from a publisher, sit in a cubicle farm for 6 years, and then get your name buried in credits under 5 layers of management. We are witnessing one of the most democratizing eras in video game development history, and somehow your takeaway is, but not everybody gets to enjoy the ride? Of course they don't, but that's always been the case. But now the door is actually open. Look at Path of Exile and Grinding Gear Games, a tiny studio in New Zealand that grew to a 200-person powerhouse. It's working on 2 full-scale games. Look at Expedition 33, built by ex-Ubisoft developers, a composer that they found on SoundCloud, and Jennifer Svedberg-Yen, a former private equity investor who just wrote what might be this year's Game of the Year. The indie boom is not excluding people. It is including people that AAA would have never hired in the first place. That old system kept the gates locked. This new era is tearing them down. What you're seeing isn't exclusion, it's a healing process, a long overdue correction of decades of bloat, overreach, and creative stagnation. I'm going to get some people that are going to disagree with me on this, and that's fine. I do not believe in supporting these bloated structures, systems, and bureaucracy more than...
I 100% agree with you. Hello? Okay. I 100% agree with them. I'm sorry.
anything else, all in the name of job preservation. I think that it is a pathetic narrative that is driven by people that resist progress. And in a lot of cases, because they don't want to adapt, they want to make it everybody else's problem. This is something that has happened since the dawn of industries in trade. Anytime there are changes in the market, anytime new technology is introduced, old jobs go out, new jobs come in, some jobs get displaced, and in some cases, like the video game industry, well, the industry gets decentralized. That's why we see a private equity investor starting to write for video games. Media's gone through the exact same thing. Otherwise, you wouldn't have a guy that worked 8 years in construction that has no journalistic background whatsoever that's writing reviews for video games and writing video essays on YouTube.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
I think the real problem for these people, and what really scares them, is that average everyday people are getting involved in these industries and in some cases getting rich because of it, and they don't like that.
how dare they do it with less people? How dare they not I don't know the word. Acquiesce to having a 50-team HR department.
Him is scary. On top of that, these people do not have the credentials that they want. They didn't go to college for it. Sounds like a you problem, not a me problem.
Funny how no one complains about how, like, some of the, like, greatest inventors and stuff didn't go to college. Guy that created Apple didn't go to college. Guy that created Facebook didn't go to college. Well, he did, but then he dropped out. I'm seeing a theme here.
Problem. Let's be honest, this article, especially coming from the media's point of view, this is more about control. Indie games are harder to predict, they're harder to market, and for them specifically, it is much more difficult for them to monetize from the outside. Not for everybody else.
Nope. Can't monetize from the outside.
It definitely is for them. No more guaranteed preview cycles, no more demos behind closed doors, no more getting cozy with their PR team. No, you're on even footing with guys like me, and I bet that keeps you up at night. But this,
You can't schmooze my marketing department to make it, to, like, get you a little back door and stuff. Nope. Gotta talk to me. I'm very smart. Also a dragon that can read your mind. Good luck lying to me.
the argument is going to shift now. Now instead they want to talk about,
Of course.
who does not benefit from going indie, because indie developers do not hire these specialists that only do one thing. And it's really funny because this feels like this is the only industry where doing more than one thing is a threat instead of just doing your job. The writer then goes on to say, my PAX trip validated my fear that 3 professions are especially vulnerable in this deprofessionalized world. Artists, writers, and
You wanna know what's hilarious? Those aren't the professions that are actually, well, those are affected by AI. Artists, writers, and game audio, since really AI does not need to be in them. I'd say, if anything, AI can be like a support tool for audio and music because of like how audio and music works. But other than that, those rules aren't affected by this exact change. They're actually wanted more. There's just more competition in those areas now because of these changes. There's actual competition.
those working in game audio or music. These roles seemed vulnerable because on these small teams, they were roles that developers mentioned doing in some sort of shared or joint fashion.
How dare multiple people have a say in the writing and game music? Those things are meant for lots and lots of people. Only one person should work on them.
All 3 risk compartmentalization as asset creators, their work treated as products you can purchase off of a store shelf. The writer then expands on this fear by pointing to broader industry shifts. He argues that in-house art positions are disappearing as studios are increasingly outsourcing asset creation overseas to cut costs. This move, he suggests, is being reinforced by the rising use of AI-generated art, something he openly criticizes for its poor quality, but sees it gaining momentum anyway. In his view, the value of artists is being eroded not because their work is bad, but because it's now seen as something that can be cheaply replicated or bought off of a shelf.
That's what I'm saying. AI does not need to be a part of creation. Can it do that? Yeah. But it does need to be a part of it. Because it doesn't... It brings nothing new to the table. In actuality. Because you still need to train every type of AI needs training. What did it get trained on? Oh, it gets trained on all these other people's works.
Even art directors, he noted, are surviving not on creative output, but on their ability to delegate. When it comes to narrative, the critique gets a little bit more personal. The writer cites industry layoffs, pointing out that writers made up the highest percentage of reported job losses in the last year. He attributes this to two diverging trends: the success of games that minimize storytelling altogether, and the increase in tendency for story-driven titles to be written by a select few, usually the creative director or maybe one or two trusted collaborators, leaving fewer roles for dedicated narrative teams. He also then reflects on long-standing frustrations that writers face in game development.
And argue with, like, say I'm wrong if you want, but I feel like one of the things that's hardest to do with a bigger group is story and, like, tone. So you would want less people on that. So that, because, like, that, a lot of these big games are kind of bad at their story, or really bad at their story, because they have too many people. Or they're adding in stuff that doesn't make any sense to be added to the story.
Many of them brought in late, treated as an afterthought.
Whereas like one or two people or three people can usually stick to a tone and a story direction.
Positioned in conflict with the broader design goals, some studios have tried to bridge this gap by rebranding writers as narrative designers, combining them with implementation, but the implication, he argues, is clear. Being just a writer is no longer enough. As for music and sound design, his concerns are much more structural. Audio work, he says, is increasingly handled through asset libraries, with implementation often falling on the other team members. While some composers prefer the freedom to work across multiple projects, he sees this shift as another sign that audio professionals, like artists and writers, are being treated more like support staff than essential contributors. And there it is, the famous self-insert, the emotional reveal, and honestly probably the real source of this article's frustration. It's kind of hilarious that they still can't see the correlation: small teams prioritizing design and programming, and those are the games that are succeeding. I hate to be the one to say it, but artistic roles are less essential, at least at the start. If a game isn't fun, if it doesn't play well, it doesn't matter how pretty the lighting or how cinematic the game feels.
I think so. But at the same time, some of your most dedicated players and the players that you know come back are the ones that do finish the story. They're the ones that are hooked. You hook enough people with your story, with your gameplay, you have a more, like, sticky, as they call it, adaption rate to your, like, next product.
Is thriving right now because it's the exact opposite of AAA. It's gameplay and performance first, everything else after. That's what players care about. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you
gameplay is first, but you do need story. If it's like any type of story in the game. Yeah, like Dark Souls. But here's the thing. It's still a cohesive story. Oak. It's not just like slapdash stuff in there. It's like they still look back at all their story and they still piece it kind of together. You fill in some of the parts, but for the most part, there's still a built story there. Like, they've already got the framework and parts of the windows in. All you're really adding is like the paint on the outside and stuff like that. Take this Expedition 33. Like, it still made a really good story, from what I understand. Like, that's what truly makes a good game. Well, that's what, like, I think his name's Valiant, Bastion, or something like that for the Dark Souls. He pulls it all together. And he helps some people that can't do that. Like, they don't have the time to, like, go through all of it. But those people get invested in that story and love it. Do you need to continue that story? No. Make a new one. But you've shown people that you do seem to care about every aspect of your game.
You guys, that there's no value in talented artists, musicians, or writers. Hell, they're some of the most celebrated people in the industry.
Yeah.
There absolutely is value in them. But let's be real, those roles only exist because of programmers and designers. Without their core systems and mechanics, you're not making a game, you're making a slideshow with music. These creative roles, no matter how skilled, are built on top of a foundation that they didn't pour. They're contributors, not cornerstones.
Yeah.
And those roles can only thrive if the studio is stable enough, profitable enough, and able to actually invest in things that aren't essential to core gameplay.
Core gameplay is first, story is secondary. A truly good game has good both. Just a good game, like, I would say above average, just has good gameplay. And then, like, a lackluster story. People will still complain about your story and stop playing if it's bad. You need to have both, at least kind of up to standards. Gameplay more important, obviously, but you still need a little bit of a good story. And music and story go a long way together, is what I'm saying. Are they important as the game itself? No.
What's wild to me is the complete lack of accountability here. This article paints it like it's some sort of injustice that small indie teams often share roles, where creative directors also write, animate, and score the game, where people that are rigging the characters are also building the gameplay systems that they move through. But that's not dysfunction, that's adaptability. That's what a generalist is. That's how most industries work outside of gaming. Hell, I would bet almost everybody that is watching this video right now does way more than their job title suggests. When I worked in construction, I was constantly operating outside of my role, handling HR things like hiring and firing, writing environmental reports, coordinating with government.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. Music sometimes could be a defining factor. Bit more important than the story itself. Basically, think of it like a triangle. You need the big point at the top. That would be, obviously, the gameplay. But you still need something down there. And the better they are, the more solid that triangle is.
Government agencies, researching equipment, contacting suppliers, creating and fulfilling purchase orders, even learning to read P&IDs and mechanical drawings. I got more involved in the process because that's what my job required. That's what being useful meant. Wearing multiple hats isn't a threat to job security, it's a privilege, it's a responsibility, and in most industries, it's expected. Look at Ubisoft, they are bloated with specialists right now, yet they are completely directionless. The first Assassin's Creed trilogy was made with around 150 developers. Now they have over 1,000 people working on a single entry, and every release gets further away from what made that series special. Guillaume Broche, Sandfall CEO, is also the creative director of Expedition 33. When that team started with just 8 people, they all had to become generalists, taking on roles that they had never done before just to make it work. And in some cases, they ended up excelling at things that they had never tried. And you know what? That made the game better. It made it cohesive, because when people are designing systems that are also touching the visuals, the animation, the design, you start to get alignment, you get purpose. You don't get this Frankenstein project where nobody knows what somebody else is building or how this whole thing fits together. That's the real problem with over-specialization. It turns game development into a game of telephone. The longer the pipeline, the more distorted the message. What the designer envisioned at the very beginning gets twisted by the time it reaches the animators, then further when it gets to VFX, and it's lost entirely by the time marketing gets their hands on it. The more segmented the roles, the more disjointed the final product. Maybe the uncomfortable truth that this writer doesn't want to hear is that this industry was never meant to fully support specialists, or at least to the degree that they have been. Maybe it's time for more people to take on more roles because the industry got into this mess that they're in right now precisely because they put too much weight on how things look and not how they play. We've got studios that are dropping hundreds of millions of dollars on graphics and cinematics, but they can't even be bothered to optimize their games to run above 30 FPS. We've got
like, that doesn't even make sense. Like, I'm not going to complain about 30 to 60 FPS, but I know a lot of people care about that. Why would you not care about that?
Spending 6 months on hair physics while the combat feels like it was designed by an intern. What does the animation budget matter if the story's a joke? What does a beautiful world mean if the systems inside of it are broken? Maybe people need to stop clinging to being in a specialized role and take a step back and ask how they are actually contributing to what matters most, whether these games are fun or not. So no, I do not buy into this narrative of deprofessionalization, not for a second. What we are seeing isn't the decay of the games industry, it is its next evolution in game development. And honestly, it's not even new. This is what the industry was born from. Small teams, self-starters, people that knew how to build the whole damn thing, not just a piece of it. Is a professional somebody that only knows how to do one job? Or is it someone who understands the entire process and can bring something to life from start to finish? Because I know which one I would hire. This whole conversation feels less like a warning and more like job preservation for the sake of job preservation. And look, I get it. Transitions are hard. Watching your field change around you is hard, but we're not entitled to the status quo. The reality is the industry is shifting. You have to shift with it. That's not cruelty. That's life. Dust yourself off, learn something new, expand your role, and if you believe that your skill set is so valuable, then you need to go out there and prove it in more ways than one. Before every studio wanted...
What he says basically is very true, because, like, take, like, indigo, like, dyeing. Like, there's a guy in Japan who still keeps the tradition of, like, how you do it alive. And he teaches people for free. And his stuff is the most wanted stuff. Yet these companies don't want to do that. Nah, AI art it. Like, that, dump it in the vat. Use AI art to decide what it's gonna look like. See where the cutoff happened there? Like, what happened to, like, some of these, like, amazing ways of making stuff when you depend on AI art and depend on all these, like, crazy structures of, like, these companies? You lose the message, you lose the plot. You start doing stuff wrong, you start doing stuff lazy, you start doing stuff, and you start losing the actual skill to do said things.
To balloon to 20,000 employees. Most of this work was contracted. Teams were leaner, production was tighter, and when one game had ended, well, those people then moved on. But over time, these companies got greedy. They scaled up their output. They held on to these massive headcounts, and instead of letting people go when one project ended, they slid them on to pre-production of the next project, over and over until the weight of this all collapsed. That is not Indie's fault. That is your leadership's fault.
And, like, something could be said for, like, keeping headcounts and stuff, but that means you don't hire those same roles again. Or, like, more, like, nuanced way to say it, it's okay to have a slightly big team, but don't get your team so big that it's coming in between you and the profits at the same time, and also causing you to mess up some of the stuff you're doing.
Indie is not a threat, it's the path forward. It's the path out. Unless you genuinely believe that your entire career hinges on someone else giving you a cubicle and a title, there is an opportunity for you out there. People are buying these games. They are selling, and they're not just passion projects anymore. Many of them are growing into sustainable, expanding studios with the resources to be able to hire new specialists when they scale. That's the natural cycle. That's how a new forest grows, not from keeping dead trees standing, but from planting new ones and giving them the space to rise. So if you're standing around waiting for AAA to save your job, I have bad news. They're not going to, but someone else might. Or hell, you might. You know, it's actually funny. The last time that I read an article from GameDeveloper.com, they had written an article that was called Yelling is Not Journalism by Brendan Sheffield. And that article was essentially saying that, you know, the whole Baldur's Gate 3 drama, when that was going on, was an opportunity to tell players why they get unfinished games and basically why we should be okay with it, and we need to be empathetic, and we need to
Oh, I was about to agree with the title, and now I don't want to.
buy microtransactions and DLCs, and how it's not the developer's fault. But the funny thing is, we're customers. We don't have to be empathetic. And this entire...
We do not. Like, I'm sorry to say that, because I'm a very empathetic person, but at the same time, I'm not dumb. There are parts where you need to be empathetic, and there are parts where you don't. Some of these things aren't my problem. They're your problem. You need to fix them. I don't give a crap. Kind of thing. Like, where do you think I have to care about, you're overbloated and you have so many, like, checks and balances?
Your thing, yet again, reads like
I'm not that reason.
Empathy. But empathy doesn't make better video games. And better video games need to be made for these companies to be able to make the money, to be able to keep these specialists employed. Jobs follow the money. So regardless of how necessary you think your job is or how much it needs to be protected, at the end of the day, we are the ones that decide what's necessary and what's not. Inflation keeps going up. The price or cost of living continues to increase. And now these game companies want to increase prices on video games. Players cannot gamble on $70 to $80 games.
You can't.
And those are the kind of games that these specialists are involved in.
$70 was a thought process. $80 is a decision kind of thing. Like, you can convince yourself to buy a $70 game, but when it hits that $80, that's I don't have that kind of money right now. I need to pay for bills and food and clothes and all this other stuff. This isn't a luxury, it's a hobby. This isn't like... And most gamers are the people that only had so much expendable income. Gaming is the cheap hobby. Guess what? You don't get to be an expensive hobby because, honestly, you can't justify it.
Why do you guys think that Doom the Dark Ages isn't doing well in sales? It's because the game...
I know a lot of my friends are playing it. They enjoy it. So that is fair. Like, I'm happy they enjoy it. But I was not planning on getting it because I had already seen some stuff about it that I didn't like.
The game does not deliver on the value...
I have the other Dooms. I'll be fine.
...of the price that it's being charged for.
Like, all they had going for them for me was the dragon.
They have to charge that price, otherwise they're not going to be able to make the money back to be able to pay the specialists that they
Unless the dragon's 90% of the game, I don't care.
have working on the game. Industries and the world itself is constantly evolving, and you cannot believe that your job will be protected or that your job is somehow more valuable than others. I think that it is incredibly narcissistic for you to believe that the world needs to capitulate or protect you because you are only
incredibly narcissistic.
Good at one thing, or you only want to do one thing.
No. Didn't any one of these guys' parents tell them that you need to be work fluid? That you need to be able to do multiple things?
You can do that. You can be that person, but if you're going to be that person, you have
just
to...
the OST is enough. I hear you.
Live with the consequences of your lack of flexibility. If you do not bend, you break.
Yes.
I think a lot of these folks are going to break.
That's what my parents, my adopted parents and my original mom used to always tell me. If you don't bend, you will break. You need to be flexible. You need to be job flexible. Don't get all caught up in one little thing, because it'll disappear like that.
You are not going to get any pity from the average consumer. It's just not going to happen. Because we all know.
To be fair, you get it from me for the most part, but
that's not my job. That almost always leads to not having a job. And when it comes to writer, artist, or musician, these are things that in common society that we view as hobbies. And you guys have the opportunity. No, you guys have the privilege of making that your job. It is up to...
Exactly. You are a hobby. Some of us use you as a job, but we also treat you as a hobby. We pick and choose.
You to protect it, not the world. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys did enjoy the video, make sure to share the video with your friends. Make sure to like the video, share the video. I already said share. Subscribe to the channel. Comment down below. Hey, follow me on Twitch. Follow me on Twitter. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Stay cool. Stay righteous. Stay safe. Peace.
Peace! Family, family, family. I love that. But yeah, that's literally that.